Today, I want to talk about the solving of the yogurt shop murders. Finally. Before I get into that, though, I want to reassure my older fans that you are not missing anything when the intro isn't there. Have you noticed? I've decided not to use that intro anymore. 3 years. I don't need an intro. I think people get sick of it and fast forward. So there's no sense in me putting it up there. I'm just going to dive right into the content because that's what I'm hoping that you're here for. And also the shirt. I've been wearing this shirt for probably 5 years. And my wife said to me, "Are you going to do another video with that shirt on?" And I said, yeah. Because number one, I don't care what people think. And number two, there's nothing wrong with this shirt. I have a pair of jeans that I know I bought during the hunt for the Zodiac killer in California, which was in 2017, and I still wear them. There's no holes in them. I mean, what's the sense? I'm not one of those people that have to be obviously fashionable. You wear clothes to cover you up, keep you warm. That's how I think. Anyhow, I digress. Let's talk about the yogurt shop murders. And we won't talk about how important Rocky Balboa has been an inspiration to me and many others. The yogurt shop murders was solved recently. And again, I have to wonder if it's because of the HBO documentary, which was a great documentary. I love those type of documentaries that show different perspectives. In this case, I like the fact that they showed the original detective and then later the detective that picked up on the case, who was definitely obviously wrong. Now, hindsight's always 2020 on things, okay? And I get that all the time when I review cases. I remember the district attorney one time, I had questioned a case and told them they were wrong. And I went in there to discuss my findings with him, and he was like, "How would you feel if 20 years from now someone comes and dissects your cases and tells you that you were wrong and you did it wrong? How would that make you feel?" And I thought for a second, and I was like, "Well, isn't that my job as a cold case detective? If they're right, I'll say they're right. If they're wrong, they're wrong. So I don't have a problem with it." In this case, they were wrong. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I did a whole week worth of videos on the yogurt shop murders where I looked at the case. I did a criminal profile of the case, and I got some things right, but I got a couple things wrong. And we'll go into that as well because I got a lot of messages recently saying, "Dude," first of all, I hate being called dude. Um, "Dude, your criminal profile, you nailed it." Well, not exactly. Okay. And I can learn from that. I did get some things right, but hey, I wasn't perfect on it. And so I want to address that. And one of the things that I knew from the very beginning was that they arrested the wrong people. And it reminds me of obviously what? The West Memphis 3 case. Now, I'm still not 100% convinced that Damian Eccles and Jesse Miss Kelly and the third individual there, his name slips me as I creep up on 51 years of age, um, Jason Baldwin. I'm still not sure they're innocent, okay? I looked at the case, but I didn't do a real deep research into it. But I will say there was no evidence to arrest them, let alone convict them. So I believe I said that before. But the yogurt shop murders, I mean, sometimes I get maybe fairly or unfairly, depending on how you look at it, labeled as being cocky. Um, and I used to push back on that. But I don't anymore because it is what it is. I can't, I don't like to be fake. I hate fake people. Hate it. You can spot them a mile away. And I've seen them in ASOC. When I created that group, man, there were some fake people. A lot of great people who weren't fake, but there were some very fake people. And uh, I learned a hard lesson that way. But I digress. If I'm cocky, it's just because I'm confident. I'm very confident in my assessments. Uh, you just, it's like Tom Brady playing football, and now he speaks about it, as a commentator. Maybe he's not the best commentator, but he does it with confidence because he was there. He knows it, and he feels that he can speak on it intelligently. And I feel the same way. And when I looked at this case, I knew that they weren't guilty. Those four people, I know that they got a confession, but there was too many things that they messed up in that confession. And if you go back and look at the videos, and I'm gonna post all of them because I made a video with all of them on there at the end here, so you can go back and look at what I said, so you don't just think that I'm Monday morning quarterbacking this shit. I said back then, hey, these guys did not do it, and here is the reasons why. And the reasons why is you could tell by the crime scene that it was an experienced offender. Okay? Things that I got right in the criminal profile off of memory. I haven't watched it in 2 or 3 years, but I knew that the guy had spent time in prison. And the individual who was not arrested for this, but is being accused of it, I believe his name was Robert Bashers. He was a serial killer, and he had done time before these murders. State time, which I specifically stated in my assessment. I also stated that he more than likely got caught and he was going to kill a witness. And he was placed in prison because of witness testimony or a police report of a witness telling it, and that's exactly what happened. Now, and that he was a white male within, I think I said he had to be at least age 20 because he had to do state time where he learned to set a fire to cover his tracks. So yeah, I got those right. But something I got wrong was two things, I believe. One was that I said this was done by two people. And it looks like I got that wrong. And now why? It was because I used possibilities to probabilities, and the two weapons, a 22 and I believe it was a 38 was used. To me, that indicated two people, just like it would you. So, but I left it open when you go back and look that I said it's possible that the offender had two guns. But I felt very confident in saying that there was two offenders, and it looks like that I was wrong on that. And listen, that's the thing about being a professional. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong on something. I was wrong on that. I think a lot of people were wrong, but that doesn't matter. I was wrong. That's the point. Another area that I think I was wrong in, now that I look back at Brasher's history, was that I'm pretty sure that I said robbery was the first motive. Remember, you can have different motives. And I said robbery was the first motive. That was the reasoning for the initial contact. And then it turned into a sexual motivated crime when he had them stripped and binded them with their own clothes. And I said that he had done that before and to look for other murders that had that MO. And I think I got that right as well. But it appears, now I didn't see this anywhere, it appears that I got that wrong, that it was a sexually motivated crime the whole time. And I still have a problem with that. Four people. Now, again, it's easy, not easy, but four people can be controlled by one person. I've seen it in many cases. BTK, um, Idaho, you know, four murders, not really controlling them, but all you need is a weapon, specifically a gun. People are going to listen to you. So I just still have a hard time believing that sexual gratification, the sexual assault, was the motive of that. And then maybe robbery being second. That one I'm still a little hung up on. It doesn't seem, man, he would have had to have locked in on one of those girls in order for him to not be able to control himself and say, hey, I'm going to sexually assault her or her or her or her, whatever it was, with that many people in a public place. I know it was closing, but man, that takes balls. And again, it goes to show that he was an experienced offender. It wasn't his first time. Like they were saying, this Franklin or Mildred Pierce and the other three individuals. And that takes me to the yogurt shop murder documentary on HBO, and the second guy, the second detective, who, listen, you're a detective. I have the utmost respect for you. But how you were adamant that they did it. Still, all these years later, you're like, I got the right guy. I can't fault you for your thought process in that, because that's how you honestly felt. But where's your evidence? Just when I watched that documentary, I was like, well, yeah, they found a kid with a 22 in the mall. That was the lead. To me, that was the lead that they went off of. And then they start looking into his background and, seeing some things that they didn't like. Nothing sexual, which this crime was. But like, a juvenile kid like Jason Baldwin was. That doesn't make you a murderer. I just think sometimes detectives need more training. I really do. Because you could tell within the first 10 minutes that these kids didn't do that. Just look at the crime scene. Erase everything else. Erase interviews, erase confessions. Look at the crime scene. You're telling me that if you look at that and you think 4 juvenile kids did that based on the crime scene? No. You need to go back to more training. That's just all it is. There's no fault of your own. You just were wrong. You don't know any better, I guess. But when you're playing with lives, people going to jail for decades for something they didn't do. I mean, we need to address that. But then in the documentary, for that second detective who took over the case to say, well, I really think it was these Creek people down here. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I mean, you could tell it was an experienced offender, and it's not juveniles. Anyway, again, Monday morning quarterbacking. I hate doing it, but that's what you do as a cool case detective. So they used YSTR, I believe, genealogy to solve that case. Maybe it wasn't genealogy. It was definitely YSTR. Now, I know that I've been slipping in my learning of the new DNA technologies. I remember entering YSTR information into databases of universities online many years ago. I'm talking 10 years ago, in order to try to get a lead on my case on my cases, but this particular one that I was working. And I think I did a news article with Newsweek or the USA Today or something, and I had stated back then, it was after the Golden State killer was arrested, and they asked me whether something about that case, and I said YSTR or even DNA, putting it into a database, I've been doing that for a long time. And some cop wrote me, he's like, where have you been doing this for a long time? Almost like he didn't believe me. So I directed him to, I don't know if it's the University of Texas or it was the university's website. And I was like, here you go. I'm not lying. That's one thing I don't do is lie. So YSTR, the male side of the DNA, we have that in Sherry Jo Bates' murder, who some people believe it was the Zodiac. And I still compare that YSTR to suspects. When people come and say, I believe that this person did it, I say, give me a profile and compare it. A YSTR is very good. So I was glad to see that was used here in order to identify this serial offender. I started to research Brasher's past history, because I love when a case gets solved, not only for the victims' families, but for my knowledge, because I'm like, okay, did I have it right? Let me go back and look at this guy's history, compare it to the crime scene assessment. What did I think? And, in this case, I was like, yeah, okay. He did the same thing. He bound victims with their own clothing. Why does he do that again? Why? Answer it. Yes, because it worked. Remember that. It's like Ted, you compare cases. Always compare cases. Ted Bundy with his arm in a sling. Okay, he did it. It worked, so he continued to do it. Ted Bundy going in originally and abducting his first victim from the house, knocking her out, carrying her. He abandoned that. Why? Because it didn't work. It was too much work. It was much easier getting a ruse, getting his cast in an arm, getting them to the car where he could knock them out and just throw them in. Much easier. And then when that worked, hey, I'm sticking with it. So with Robert Brasher's, if he's binding people with their own clothing, there's a reason. It's working for him. Okay, so he doesn't have to bring bindings. Now, he may have before or he may have after, I don't know, but he certainly did this with other murders that he did. He committed these murders in different jurisdictions. And I think I point this out in my video as well, that the location of that shop off such a busy interstate, I thought that it's possible that the person didn't live in the area, that they were passing through. Yeah, I mean, I guess I got that right, but that was just pretty much an educated guess based on other cases that I've looked at where a business was either burglarized or a violent act had happened next to a busy intersection. So I would like to know more about Brasher's, as his timeline is. Like, why was he there? And was it a robbery gone wrong? Or if it was strictly, hey, I'm locked in on this person and I'm going to sexually assault him there. I have a hard time still believing that with 4 people there. But if it comes out that that's what it was, then I obviously will believe it. But just like Brian Kohberger, and I said before they identified Kohberger, if you go back and watch my crime scene assessments and videos of that, I said he locked in more than likely on, I think her name was Kaylee. And you could, I think it's bare to be true that that's what happened. But anyhow, again, I digress. It's about the Overshot murders being solved. Robert Brasher and his murders in different jurisdictions, that still creates a problem. Even though we have, VICAP and different databases that if you enter your case, it can link it to other cases, it's still a problem. Now, it's much better than it was in the 70s when you had the heyday of the serial killer and murder, Ted Bundy in Washington and then in Florida and different places. It's hard to link those cases because law enforcement doesn't talk to each other. So here, Brashers did that in the 90s. So it's very hard to link. Serial killers know this, okay? And so when you kill in different jurisdictions, it doesn't even have to be out of state, just different jurisdictions in the state. Sometimes, especially in the 90s, and even today, though, it's hard to link them. I think that's one of the reasons he wasn't caught until he was eventually caught. But why was he let out in the first place? I mean, it takes me back to, I've talked about this many times. There are certain people that I feel deserve to be let out of prison and paroled. There are certain people that may deserve to be let out of prison, but we can't let them out of prison. Okay? And I'm talking about the sexual deviant offender, which Brasher's obviously was. If you take an individual who kills 4 people in a robbery, okay, they most certainly deserve to go to prison. And in most cases, I will say they probably deserve to go to prison for the rest of their life. But there are some who may be able to be rehabilitated. Because why? They don't do it for a sexual gratification. They do it for money. Maybe they're poor, maybe they're starving, maybe they're greedy, whatever it is. They're a 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid. They go in there, they're surprised that there's 4 individuals. He ends up shooting them all. Takes the money, gets caught. When that individual is 75 years old and he's done 70 years in prison, 60 years in prison, does he deserve to be let out? Well, let's look at what he's done in prison. Oh, he's been good. He's got a degree. He leads groups. He's never been in trouble. Yeah, maybe he does deserve to be let out. Maybe. I'm not the person to ask that. But if you have a person like Robert Brashers that goes in, robs the place, sexually assaults 4 people, and he's done it before, and he's done it after, as we know, and he's arrested, does he deserve to be out? No. Now, what's the difference, you ask? The difference is the sexual deviant cannot be rehabilitated. Let me repeat that because it's very important that you understand this. A sexual deviant cannot be rehabilitated and let out into the public. Now, if you want to put them, in a sexual deviant, let's create these sexual deviant homes and put them in there because you don't feel that he deserves to be in prison, whatever you got to do. But you have to protect society from that person. The prison system has the way, and listen, I never worked in a prison, but I've been in a prison hundreds, if not thousands of times, okay? They want their population lessened. That's what they want. Why? Because it's hard on their budget. It's hard on manpower. They got to hire more people. Let's get them out. So, hey, this guy's been good in prison. Robert Brashers, he's did 8 years of a 20-year sentence. Let's let him out. Okay, let's do it. He fits the criteria. The prison, they don't care. Again, if something doesn't affect a person, they don't care. So they let him out. And what's he do? He reoffends every single time. You cannot let a sexual deviant, sexual offender out. You can't. Now, that's great that you create Megan's Law. That's great. Let people know. It's not going to stop them. Just like the death penalty doesn't stop a sexual offender. Doesn't stop anybody. So, I see all these. I mean, there's countless serial killers that have done time in prison for a sexual offense and then are let out. And they all reoffend because they have an urge, a thirst for sexual gratification that they can't get from normal means, like you and I get it from. They have to kill. They have to be in control. They have to have power over a person. They need to look into their eyes while they're strangling them. You can't rehabilitate that, folks. So Robert Brasher should have never been out of prison. He joins a long list of serial offenders and victim family members who have to grieve and have their whole life turned upside down because of a decision that social workers or, prison officials make. Now, you look at somebody like Bill Nogueira, who I just did the TV show with, Death Row Confidential. Now, you're sitting here saying, well, Kenny, you're a hypocrite. Well, no, I'm not. He's not a sexual deviant offender. He did kill, and he was wrong. And he did 43 years on death row. A perfect punishment, I believe. But he's rehabilitated, and he's not going to reoffend. He doesn't have that thirst, that desire to murder. He snapped as an 18-year-old kid. Okay? It's funny as somebody sent me a comment, you let a rapist, you help get a rapist out of jail. Listen, buddy, do your research before you come at me with something like that. Okay? Anyway, the yogurt shop murders is solved. Right? Well, some people think that it's not. And I'm guessing that the people that convicted those 4 kids, meaning the district attorney, the ADAs, the police detectives, I want to see what they say. I want to see if they can swallow their ego and say, we got it wrong. Now, the new DAs, they're saying that, but they didn't have a penny in it to begin with. They inherited the case. I'm talking about the original ones. Or will they stand their ground and say, no, I still believe that it was these. That's fine that you do that. Give me the evidence why. And then we'll match it up to the evidence that they got now. Okay? I mean, just because you get DNA from Robert Brasher's, you don't hold a press conference and say, hey, we solved the case. No, there's a lot more work to be done. Then you start digging into Brasher's background. Okay, you find these other crimes that he did. That's great, but that still doesn't make him guilty. You got to find a timeline. You got to put him in the area. Why was he in the area? Does he have family in the area? Things like that. The DNA is just the icing on the cake, or it's where the lead starts. That's all that is. It's another lead. And as a detective, that's all you want, is to have another lead to follow up on. Man, if I was a detective, I would be elated. I could just imagine sitting in the office and the call coming in saying, hey, we got a match on your yogurt shop murders. One of the victims, and I'm not sure. I heard that the DNA came from underneath one of the girl's fingernails, but I had never heard that before. I thought it was vaginal DNA, sperm. So I would like to know that. Was there both, or was this from the fingernails, which is great. But to get that call, yeah, we got a match. Not just that, hey, we got a profile. That's number one. You send the evidence in and you just hope for enough there to get a profile. Sometimes cops get that and then it just sits because there's no matches to anything or anybody. But then to say, hey, we got a match. Now, I never knew about this YSTR database. That is tremendous because I have YSTR for, like I said, Sherry Joe Bates case and others. So, hopefully I can get with law enforcement and get that into a database to see if there's a match. But for them to say, yeah, we have a match, his name's Robert Brashers. Okay, never heard of it before. And I can imagine doing some research. Google his name, first thing. Holy shit, he's a serial killer. And the elation just continues to build. And then you look into his crimes, you see, oh, it's the same MO. He uses a gun, he shoots him. Oh, he used a 22 here, he used a 38 here. I mean, each lead gets you so excited. I mean, I get excited thinking about it. So, kudos to those detectives, that cold case detective, for solving this case, never giving up for the victims' families. I mean, true hero to me. True. I guess that's it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the yoga shop murders. That's it. And my elation that it's solved for those families. For all you that got it wrong, whether you're an amateur detective or you were a detective on the job, be man enough or woman enough to say so. That's all. I'm thinking about those family members and what they're going through. They so happy for them. So very happy for them to finally get the answers. Not the closure. There'll never be closure. They got some answers. And those answers will bring more questions from them, but they don't have to ask who anymore. They may ask why, but you won't have to ask who. And for some, that's enough. Very important. So I will link my Yogurt Shop Murders videos and you can critique them. Tell me how much I got wrong, how much I got right, whatever you want to do. Haters will hate, fans will fan. That's just the way it is. But remember, we do these crime scene assessments and look at these cases for a reason. And that's to generate leads, and that's for somebody to watch it and get the information out there for them to ultimately solve the case. I did Beth, is it Drexel? Brittany Drexel, and they held a press conference, blamed this African-American kid, said there was a croc and they fed her the crocodile. The FBI held this press conference. It was such a horseshit. And again, if you know anything, if you're at the top of your game, you know anything about crime scenes or, just criminal profiles in general, you know that they're wrong. And sure enough, they were wrong. It was a guy named Moody, a sexual offender in the area. And, I did that criminal profile before the arrest. I got that right. People ask me all the time, how do you get these criminal profiles right? Because that's my job. You know what I mean? If you research and look at things and deduce possibilities and probabilities, you get them right every time, for the most part. Delphi, same thing. Kerry Parker, same thing. So, listen, just do the research, do the deductions, and you will be fine. If you're in law enforcement, don't let your ego override the case. Meaning, number one, call the victim's families back. We have too much of that not happening. Too much. Number two, just because you're wrong or you're stuck, it's okay to reach out to an expert. Call me. Send me an email. I'll look at it for you. I'll say, yeah, you're right. No, you're wrong. You need to be looking in this direction. Okay? Buy my book up there, Mastering Cold Case Investigations. It'll take you through everything on how to determine who's responsible. Now, remember I stated some people said that I was cocky, and I used to fight that perception. I remember being in the Marine Corps, and this girl said to me, you were your cocky self talking to him, and I got offended. But if that's the way I come off, now at age 51, I'm like, well, I'm not going to fight that. I know I'm humble, but I am confident in my ability to solve cold cases. Confident in it. So if I come off as cocky, it's just the way it is. But doesn't mean I'm wrong. Okay? So I get offended when cold case detectives or detectives have an ego and they can't reach out for help. This statement will sound so cocky to you. I had a film producer ask me yesterday, how many cold cases have you solved? And I said, every fucking one that was put in front of me. Now, you're saying, damn, you're cocky. Well, listen, it's because when I look at a case, I can tell you who did it, why they did it. I might not be able to name the exact person, but I could say, well, this is a sexual offender because of the positioning of the body, because of the time of day that they broke in, they didn't have a job, whatever it is. I can tell you that. Now, sometimes I can tell you the offender's name himself, if it's in the police reports as well. Does it mean that it's getting prosecuted? No. Just because you solve a case, it doesn't mean it's going to go to trial. My job has always been to solve the case. It's the district attorney's job to say, hey, I'll sign off on an affidavit of probable cause. It's the judge's job to sign off on, that there's enough evidence for a preliminary hearing to go forward to trial. It's not my job. I can just tell you who did it. O.J. Simpson, Casey Anthony. What? Those cases aren't solved because there was no conviction? No, they're solved. They're guilty. So I had a cop ask me one time, a detective, me and him, two alpha males, I did not get along with him at all. He asked me, well, how many cold cases have you solved that went to trial? I said, none. How many cases does a FBI criminal profiler solve that go to trial? None. They just give you the information to help you. Think about that. Sometimes I get people say, well, you were never a homicide detective. So what? Criminal profiler is never a homicide detective. Dr. Henry Lee, one of the best, is not a homicide detective. Cyril Weck wasn't a homicide detective. You don't have to be a homicide detective to know crime, to deduce possibilities to probabilities, right? Yogurt shop murders. So glad they're solved. That's the bottom line. I hope more comes out about Robert Brashers, and I hope more of the detectives and the people that convicted the 4 innocent people are held accountable, because I think that's important. A sorry, I just don't think is going to cut it, but that's my opinion. And hey, I'm just a lowly cold case detective. But if you have a case and you're in law enforcement and you don't have an ego and you want this lowly cold case detective to take a look at it for you, I've been doing it for many years now. I'll tell you what I think. That's all I can do. I'm confident in my abilities, and I just hope that I can help. That's why I'm here. I really believe that that's why God put me here. That's my purpose, to help. So I want to do that. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have some more videos for you guys in the near future with no introductions and no outro. Just me talking. Thanks for watching. Main's out.